Hi, it's David Krayden with another Stand on Guard episode for the Post-Millennial. And my guest today is somebody who probably should need no introduction, but I'll introduce him anyways. Kamel El-Cheikh. And he has been instrumental in bringing Muslims and Christians together in their opposition to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's LGBTQ agenda in our children's schools.
So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need political change, but we also need to resolve to resist.
Is a rhetoric going on in social media, in the mainstream media, to tell Christians that Muslims don't like them, to tell Muslims that Christians don't like them, to tell white Canadians that Arabs don't like them, to tell Arabs that white Canadians don't like them. Today, ladies and gentlemen, you are proof that we are one nation under God. God bless you. And the people united will absolutely never be defeated. I want you to chant that 3 more times. The people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated.
Kamel, I want to thank you so much for being here today. I think the work you're doing is so important. And I want to start with one thing, which actually was pointed out to me before I started. You did a speech on June the 13th.
Yes, sir.
To a protest. And you said, not only just leave our kids alone, but you said, why are Muslims and Christians divided in the past? This is a piece where we can be unified. And I think that is something I've been waiting to hear for years. Could you recapitulate a bit about what you said in that speech?
Well, it's funny. I've done so many speeches throughout the years in corporations and working for the city. And I was just looking at people's hearts and looking at what they really want. And honestly, I was just articulating what actually people wanted in the Middle East. Or in Europe, for that matter. Christians and Muslims have the oldest churches, and Jews, like right along each other, right? And so that coexistence factor was there for centuries. In Canada, because Canada is still relatively a new country, and people immigrated at different times and different generations, there is that need, but unfortunately it's untapped to some extent for whatever reason. And I think it's unintentional, and that sometimes it creates dismay because of the geographics of the country, because this is the largest country on the planet, right? From Alberta to Ottawa, right? So, but the need is there. And so obviously, the kids have always been everybody's issue, whether you're, Christian or Jewish or Sikh or whatever you are, or Muslim, right? But also, Christians and Muslims are people of the book, right? And so they are considered brothers and sisters of the same family. And so I wanted to dwell on that as best as I can. And you'll find whether it's certain media or corporations or politicians, they're always looking for that divide so they can, target their agenda and reach their own goals, which is kind of selfish. And for me, Canada is built of Christians and Muslims and all denominations. Why not celebrate that? And that's indicative of the speech that I said on June 13th.
Well, and I must clarify something because I screwed your name up at the beginning. It's Kamel El-Cheikh, not El-Cheikh. Underhead Krayden got it wrong. Anyway,
That's okay. That's okay.
But
you're not the first, and you probably won't be the last at some point, right? So,
as I look at this, I'm thinking, why is Trudeau ignoring so many Canadians? Why is he pushing this, as he calls it now, gay pride season in the schools? Why are children subject to this kind of sexuality?
You know what? I can't. I'm asking the same questions you are, David. We know they're a visible minority. They're Canadians as well, but it seems like, they're getting preferential treatment. They're getting festivals, and it's Pride Month and Pride. You said season. I feel like it's Pride Year. And so, there is an agenda. It's not a Canadian agenda.
Leave only the Canadian flag! Leave the Canadian flag alone! No more silence! No more silence! No more silence!
That's evidently clear, and politicians of all parties have been guilty of that to some extent. And I'm just looking for Canada. What are you doing for Canada? What are you doing for families in Canada? What are you doing for Christian families and Muslim ones and all that kind of stuff? And I'm asking the same questions you are asking. What I'm trying to do right now is go back to the Canada that I recognized growing up, is the safety of kids, hands off the kids, let parents have the parental consent, because that is their duty as parents. The government should be only focused on running the country and not parenting in the homes, right? And so I'm trying to put a little sanity into all this, right? So and of course he keeps harping on it, and he goes to the drag queen race, and the list goes on, and it's disheartening to see, but at the same time, you want to talk about that community, go right ahead. Just don't keep, pushing it on people and pushing one opinion, because Canada is made of 99 flavors, right? What's to say which is the particular one? I mean, I don't expect you, David, to pray 5 times a day as a Muslim and come to my mosque to be my friend. I will visit your church. God forbid if somebody passes on in the family, I will visit and be respectful of the church. If somebody passes on in my family, you will come to the mosque and you will have, a juice or something like that, and the same thing. So why can't we just coexist, right?
Well, and that's precisely it. And we can coexist. And I think that's what these protests are illustrating, is that Christians and Muslims and most Jews and a lot of common sense Canadians have a lot in common. And it's not what Justin Trudeau is preaching, because Justin Trudeau is preaching, and I've talked to people in the so-called LGBT community who just say, lay off, stop defining us. Let the state get out of this, because stop telling me I have to vote Liberal if I'm and stop telling me it's all about identity politics. But what amazes me is it took so long. Do you think Justin Trudeau is losing the Muslim vote? Because he took that for granted. He even appointed an Islamophobia czar. And and I describe this Islamophobia czar as somebody who had little to do with Islam, with Islam, because her opinions were not even in coherence with
it's true. And, our prime minister is also passing fatwas. I mean, to pass a fatwa, a sheikh of a mosque can't pass a fatwa, right? You have to go to the scholars, you have to go to the PhDs, and the PhDs, they serve the utmost scholars, just like any like in the Torah, same thing with the rabbis. They have to go to the orthodoxy and orthopraxy and all that kind of stuff. He's just passing fatwas, and he's telling us what our Islam is, and so is the radical left community telling us what our Islam is. Can you just talk to the Muslims? They'll tell you what their Islam is, and so nobody's listening when it comes to that, and it's sad to see, and we have to change that. And I think the reason why that's happening is Muslims waited patiently and saw our Christian brothers and sisters weep and say, hey, look, we're going to need some help. And we came to the rescue, obviously, but we didn't want to offend. We didn't want to infringe or compel anybody, because in the Quran, it says there's no compulsion in religion. So we took the patient route, but then we're like, wait a sec here, our civil liberties are at stake. Okay, under the charter, sections 1, 2, and 3, they say you have the right to religion, you have the right to congregate with somebody of your religion, and you have the right to speak to the media about your religion. Right? And now you're telling me I don't have the right to do any of those, and you're telling me what my religion is just because you're my prime minister? That's where you're losing a lot of Muslim votes. And Muslims, they're holding every party to that standard. Which party is going to serve Canada and Canadians as a whole so we are a prosperous country? That's the party we want to vote for. And we're going to hold every politician to that. And, Doug Ford, Muslims voted for Doug Ford in Ontario. Guess what? He promised to take out the Kathleen Wynne books, who was a liberal, right? Yeah. And she brought the books of pedophilia along, and he promised to take that out. Muslims vote conservative, and guess what? We're with this ending up with the same problem. So that problem is from coast to coast. Now, obviously, some politicians are speaking out about it, and we're going to celebrate those politicians. But the ones, I don't care what color your party is, we're going to hold you to account, because you're undermining the integrity and the innocence of kids and their families. And that's where the issue lies. Hands off the kids.
Well, as I said before we started this interview, I applaud what Muslims are doing in this country, because there hasn't been enough pushback from the traditional Christians, from evangelicals, from conservative Catholics, from others who should be saying, why are our children being subjected to sexual fetishism? And that's really all this is. If I had been subjected to that sort of thing as a 5-year-old, as a 10-year-old, my mother would have been running down to the school and crying bloody murder. But for some reason, it's okay these days to introduce, as you said, innocent children to all kinds of sexual doctrines that they should not be exposed to at that age. And if they want to explore those things as adults, that's fine. But don't pretend it's part of the curriculum. So why are we not teaching kids how to read and write? We're teaching them how to masturbate.
Yes, and also remember, sex is between two consenting adults. That's a universal law, right? So how can kids consent to sexual indoctrination, sexual exploitation, sexual mutilation, and all that kind of stuff? Kids right now don't know how to eat their lunch on time, let alone go to sleep on time, let alone all the other things that they need to figure out. Why aren't we teaching math and sciences in the school? I think the responsibility is on us as Canadians, Canadian Muslims, Christians. We didn't want to be rude. We didn't want to insult, but our kindness was taken for weakness. And today, that dynamics is going to change, because we're not going to be silent about it, and we're going to be relentless. Is an understatement, and that's why we're protesting September 20th, David, for this. It's a 1 million people march from coast to coast, and the Pride community has had a 40-year honeymoon in terms of doing whatever you want. And obviously, I'm not going to paint everybody with the same brush. hey, we got our equal rights. We got, we're working and all that kind of stuff. We're happy. I'm satisfied. But now there's parts of that movement that's very radicalized that says, no. We're here, we're queer, and we're coming for your kids. And that's incredibly disturbing, David.
Yes, it is incredibly disturbing. Now, you shared some screenshots with me. I want to make sure I get to this, of how the schools are directly appealing to Muslim children to suggest the whole LGBTQ agenda is okay with the Muslim faith. I just thought this was absolute dynamite. I mean,
it's blasphemy, but
the kids are actually getting this.
Yes. So here's what's happened. So there's you're gonna maybe after this podcast, feel free to throw up with what I'm about to tell you. So what's happened is those things that I showed you are happening without the knowledge of parents. They're called pop-up indoctrination segments. So they close the door. I was told by parents and the kids themselves, because they're Muslim community here in Ottawa, that they locked up the school. They're not allowed to come out until this thing is done. So this purported gay imam who says he's an imam, I don't know what mosque he belongs to, and we're going to take him on a class action lawsuit for falsifying Islamic principles and the Quran, specifically Surah Lut that talks about this thing. And he's made some fatwas and some hadiths made up in those words that he has, and he's saying, oh, it's okay to be Muslim and queer, and it's okay to do this, and he's talking to kids and going in depth of this feeling and what Allah says. Excuse me, I've been a student of the mosque for decades. I don't dare talk about fatwas. I try to understand them, because there are the scholars that pass these fatwas, they're equivalent to about 32 PhDs. They're in the sciences, the maths, and stuff like that. To pass a fatwa for the internet, you have to be well versed in algorithms and all that kind of stuff before you can say that's halal, that's haram, you can't do this, you can't do that, right?
Yeah.
And this guy is just passing fatwas like they're 99-cent shakes at McDonald's, and he's preaching this to the students. But you know what? Our students, and they went to 4 high schools. I know of Brookfield and Longfields High School in Ottawa. The kids called him out on it, and they told him, excuse me, sir, you're a liar. These 14-year-old kids, and they walked out of class anyway. Good. And that prompted the Longfields High School protest, which I got very, very late to. It got stuck in traffic, and it went viral as well.
Well, they're basically, and Trudeau did this, of course, with his Islamophobia czar. He put in this woman who really doesn't even believe in Islam to represent all Muslims across Canada. I found it outrageous, because I looked at her opinions on things. I said, this doesn't correlate to the religion she's supposed to be defending.
Yes.
And so this is what's happening in the schools. They've got a fake imam in there saying that this is okay because I say so, not because the Quran says so.
Yes, exactly. So it's fabrication, it's falsification of a Quranic scripts. The Quran is a 1400-year-old book. It's a holy book. Muslims believe in the Bible, the original Testament. It's also a holy book, and they believe in the Torah. They believe in Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad, and those books are sacred. So to go and quote these things without going to the schools and asking the questions and being the student before you become the scholar, I got a problem with that.
No, that's absolutely fascinating. And I think we were also going to discuss, I don't think we have examples with you right now, but these same schools are peddling pornography to students. Yes. And I mean, if that had happened even 10 years ago, I think people would have been shocked. I don't think people know what's going on in the schools, because the children have been so indoctrinated by their teachers Thank God you told me that 14-year-olds were standing up and saying, forget it. You're wrong. You're not telling us the truth. But unfortunately, too many kids have been totally captured by their teachers in this thing.
Well, they're ostracized. They're provoked. When I went to Longfields High School, I had a woke teacher come up to me and just go like this to me. I'm like, wow, you're doing that to me. I could only imagine your attitude to our kids. I had a Christian kid tell me, sir, they wouldn't allow me to take my Bible into class because it's transphobic. I said, kid, you take that Bible and you walk in there, okay? Because it's your right as a Canadian. And I said that in front of the teacher, and she started rolling her eyes. I'm like, wow, lady, you're a teacher and you're showing your students that example. I had a big debate with her for 5 or 10 minutes. And then after that, it empowered the students. And that's exactly what I went there to do. You know, I'm a 43-year-old father of 3. Like yourself, you know, we had the experience and all that kind of stuff to be able to defend ourselves. But kids are in a vulnerable position here. They're 14 years old. They know the LeBron James and you know the hockey players and the pop culture. They know they're not equipped yet to defend themselves. And I will make sure that we equip them moving forward to defend themselves, because that teacher should get should get suspended and should be able to go and do some community service to understand that Christian families and Muslim families and families of all walks need to be respected. And that's kind of what the approach was, and it was very successful. It elevated the kids and it motivated them to speak up, and they were all speaking up. And it's kind of like you're letting kids out of jail type thing in Canada.
Are you optimistic that you can get close to 1 million person in September for this march?
I'll tell you this, and you know, I had to tell people, look, you know what? We did 9 protests in 3 weeks. I'm kind of exhausted, and I'm headed for my summer vacation. Can you hold off on that protest until September? And they're like, okay, sure, Kamel. I had somebody in Toronto, 10,000 people, somebody in Montreal, 2,000, somebody in Winnipeg say, Kamel, we're going to go down. We're going to go. And this is Christians and Muslims alike, right? And so am I optimistic? Absolutely. Sometimes I feel I'm understating that because, you know, the videos, they're going viral, million views and 500 comments here and, 10,000 comments there. One of the tweets that I did got 3,200 retweets. So am I optimistic? Absolutely. People, look, if it's one thing that's going to inspire Canadians from coast to coast to go down, is it's the kids and their innocence, and it's families and heterosexual families. The Pride community is 2.5% of Canada. That's why they're called the visible minority. 99.7% of Canadians are heterosexual families and their kids. Sometimes they're divorced. That's still heterosexual. Single moms, single dads, orphans, whatever, right? So I'm very optimistic. As a matter of fact, I think maybe I'm understating it. Maybe it's 5 million, but 1 million, it sounds nice. Martin Luther King did it, Nelson Mandela did it. People catch on to it. I want to simplify it and just say, and 1 million is from coast to coast. And that's the idea behind it.
Oh, okay. I do need to clarify that. So I think that's very realizable if it's coast to coast.
Yes.
You probably won't get 1 million people in Ottawa for anything, but
yeah, maybe Canada Day and the Blues Fest, but the convoy, they got 5 million. And by the way, there are people from the convoy reaching out to me, and you know what? I was at the convoy too, and I'm proud of that. But it didn't fit the CBC or CTV narrative that Muslims with hijab went down to join their fellow Canadians and sing "Oh Canada" in -40-degree weather. So we needed the fringe, and we needed the white supremacist card. So the cameras, every time we're like, hey, we're here to support. They would put the camera away.
That is classic, because now I was there from day one as well throughout the Freedom Convoy. I kept hearing from CBC and CTV, Global, and of course from our Prime Minister, that these are all a bunch of white supremacists down there.
Well, I was a good white supremacist then, and I'm privileged to be called that. As an olive skin, I'm not black or white. I'm an olive Mediterranean guy.
Yeah. What amazes me is that Justin Trudeau continues to think, at least, and I don't think he'll continue to get away with it, but up until now, he's gotten away with massive hypocrisy in his life. He goes on about white supremacists and how much he values blacks.
And then he does blackface, right?
He goes on about how much a feminist he is, and yet the first people he throws under the bus in his cabinet are women.
He's rabbled, right? Yeah.
And he treats women abominably.
Yeah.
But he is the master class hypocrite.
Well,
And
he's a good drama teacher. I'll tell you, he's the best actor that Canada can have. Now, Prime Minister, I reserve the right to say he's doing a terrible job. But as an actor, I'm prepared to give him an Oscar, and I'll buy one to give it to him.
Yes. But when I first saw Muslims protesting the Gay Pride Month, the LGBT in the schools, exposing our children to this pornography, insisting our children be indoctrinated in a political ideology, I said, God, he must be conflicted, because he's always painted Muslims in Canada as victims. And of course, I've never met a Muslim victim. I've always met fellow Canadians who wanted to work with me, be friends with me. They weren't victims. But Trudeau likes to paint Muslims in Canada as victims. And of course, if you don't, and that's called Islamophobia. And the whole LGBTQ crowd is grouped under homophobia. So I said, what's going to trump which? Is Islamophobia going to trump homophobia, or the reverse? And I thought,
well, if Islamophobia prevails, that means Christians will prevail, and Jews and everybody else, because Muslims consider Christians and Jews brothers of the book. So, they like to say Muslims are coming to bring Sharia law to the Western world and all that kind of stuff, right? And they put everybody in their respective paradigm boxes.
Trudeau has never been able, he recently spoke at an event in Calgary where he suggested that if Muslims don't support his LGBTQ agenda, and if they don't support this ideology in school, they have been misled. They have been totally brainwashed.
Well, apparently we don't have the intellect or the doctrines or the divine wisdom through our 5 daily prayers and our 30 days fasting of Ramadan to know what is right from wrong. We need Justin Trudeau to give us the fatwas, and the Pride community can take the other fatwas, and then we'll just tag along. I think that's what the expectation is.
People on social media, particularly fueled by the American right wing, are spreading a lot of untruths about what's actually in the provincial curriculum. Baseless fears around lies and around, as you said, scaring your parents into what's actually being taught. That is hurting the fabric of respect and openness that allows Canada to be one of the places where we support and defend the Muslim community more than just about any other Western country in Europe.
And we appreciate that very much, but probably a perfect example is what we saw in one of the elementary schools, where one of the teachers, she threatened and she told those kids, you are not a Canadian and you should leave Canada because you did not participate in Pride.
And one thing we don't need right now is for communities that are facing hatred to start turning on each other.
You know what? You're mistaken. We're here. We're going to unite with the rest of Canada, and we're going to tell you that we are Muslims. We're proud Muslim Canadians. To be Muslim is to be a good citizen to your country, to honor the country's laws, and to honor your fellow man. And we're going to do exactly that.
Well, so you must have felt extremely insulted when Justin Trudeau suggested you can't think on your own.
It's incredibly demeaning, and it's narcissistic, David.
Well, we've never had a more narcissistic prime minister. There's no question about that.
Unfortunately.
Your thoughts on the next election, and I'm not in anybody's political camp. I'm not in the Liberals camp. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah,
I don't.
Me neither. I'm a nomad at this point. I'm looking for the next candidate that's here to run Canada.
Do you think Justin Trudeau, though, is going to lose, the Liberal Party of Canada, is it going to lose a substantial portion of its vote?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, again, I've known some Liberal politicians that, I'm not going to name any names, that are not liking what's happening, and that are traditional Liberals. And I'm as a Muslim, when somebody tells you something in secret, you want to keep that, to keep that trust. So there are politicians, that don't like what's going on. So for me, I know Justin Trudeau is going to lose a lot of seats. What I'd like to see is a prime minister that puts Canada first. Whoever that is, it's definitely not Jagmeet Singh either, right? Yeah. Whoever that is, I just hope that they can take this Muslim Christian Canadian unity that's going to be solidified for centuries to come, because it's natural. We've worked together for hundreds of years. Islam 1400 years, Christianity 2000 years, and Judaism I don't know how long before that. So we've worked together for a long time. It's worked in Europe, it's worked in the Middle East, and it's going to work in Canada. So any prime minister, and I'm saying this all across the board because I'm nonpartisan, I'm Canada first, the Canadian flag, Terry Fox, Beaver Tails. I'm that guy. So any person that's looking to lead the country must recognize that there is a new movement from coast to coast that is fed up, that just wants Canada first, wants inflation to go down, wants mortgage rates to go down, wants Alberta to thrive, okay, and wants the country to be united, wants Quebec to be a part of it, and Alberta and everybody else. And that's the Canada that we want to see, the Canada, the melting pot of, I think the biggest complaint everybody has about Canada is the weather itself sometimes. But other than that, we have challenges, and let's develop the country. It's a changing world, and we're falling right behind. And, we have a talented populace, very well educated, the most talented populace in the world. Let's celebrate that, and let's take advantage of, we used to be the best in high tech. Do you remember that?
Yes, in Canada.
Nortel.
Where are you going today?
Why not get Christians and Muslims and Jews from coast to coast to be at the forefront again for that? Why not develop, there was a lot of times where Canada celebrates a breakthrough in some kind of research thing in one of the universities. I want to go back to that. I miss that Canada.
I miss it too. And the way you're talking right now, I think I would vote for you. Have you considered running for public office? God bless you.
You know what? I've been asked that question and I'm privileged. Thank you for asking that question. I'm privileged. I've been asked that question for 20 years, and I didn't want, because I saw the political climate go down and our parties being hijacked. Now there are good politicians in every party and stuff like that, and you never say never. But right now it's Canada first. It's the Canadian flag. It's protecting families, and you never know in the future what the future holds. It's definitely going to be a pay cut for me, though.
Yeah. Well, we talked about who's losing and who's winning in terms of this dissolution of the Liberal vote. And obviously, it's the Conservative Party and Pierre Poilievre. And I certainly supported Pierre Poilievre in his campaign to be the leader of the Conservative Party. I will not be out campaigning for anybody in the next election, because as a journalist who wants to have any credibility, I am in nobody's pocket.
That's right.
But
that's right. And
I hope Pierre Poilievre does not take you and the Muslim community or the evangelical community for granted, because he has done very little to go out there and support people like you and others who are opposed to this. He has been very careful to sound like, we sympathize, but we're right in there. We're in the pocket of the Gay Pride Month, and we're not doing anything about it. So I hope.
I need you to stand for something. Pierre Poilievre, you reached out to the Muslim community. You said Ramadan Mubarak. Thank you very much for that. And I don't want to do that. Sorry, I'm cutting off here because I'm getting a lot of phone calls. I'm going to a protest that too.
That's okay. We're at the end here.
Yeah, but I appreciate trying to reach out, and it's your job as a politician to reach out to the communities. All of them are doing that, but you know what Canadians see is somebody bluffing, not Pierre Poilievre per se. Just stand for something. You told Trudeau to butt out of the provinces. That's great. Okay, let's move forward. Let's be stern. You were also the heterosexual. The heterosexual shirt, taking a picture beside him, stand stern. Say, yeah, homosexual people, you did come from heterosexual relationship. That's a fact. Why go flip-flop back and forth? Say it like it is. People like people that are genuine, that are truthful. Who cares about the polls? You know what? When you're honest, you're putting Canada first, you're putting families first, you're putting ideologies and freedom of speech first, people will vote for you.
Right.
And you don't have to flip-flop. And that's what I'm looking to see on all candidates.
Well, I really objected to Poilievre panicking, being photographed with a guy with a T-shirt that said straight pride. Because I said,
yes,
okay, what's wrong with that? If it's okay to have gay pride, what's wrong with straight pride? Because we need to get back to what I think is what Canada is all about. It's equality under the law. It's equality,
100%.
not equity. Because
Yes.
we have been sold this bill of good about equity, promoting people, making sure others get ahead based on their religion, on their race, on their ethnicity, instead of just being equal under the law, which is what Martin Luther King preached.
Absolutely. And compassion. I don't have to be white to talk about white people's rights. I don't have to be black. I'm not white or black to love Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. Okay, Muhammad Ali is fabulous. Okay, so as human beings, in the end, we all have a beating heart and lungs. If you're looking for a blood transplant or something, that kind of not a transplant, but getting a donation of blood, you don't care about the skin color. You just want your life to move forward. Similarly with a transplant, or if you're looking to do a special project in a corporation, you don't say, "Oh, are you Muslim or are you white?" You just want that project done and by the deadline, and you want to achieve those goals. So why not do it at the political level and do it when you're running the country? That's what I'd like to see.
Exactly. Well, Kamel, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I know you've got to get off to the protest, and I might be joining you there, actually, if I can.
That's awesome.
What you've said today resonates with all Canadians who care about liberty, who care about equality, and who care about this country. And I have never heard it summed up better than what you said today. So let's stay in touch. And
absolutely,
my God, we're going to get that 1 million person march across this country.
God, keep our land glorious and free. And I can't wait to sing the national anthem while we're doing that 1 million people march.
Well, we're going to do that. So I want to thank you again for being with me. I know you got to get going, but I'll tell you this, from an evangelical to a Muslim, Allah be with you.
Allah be with you too, and peace be upon you as well.
Thank you, Kamel.
Thank you.
Hi, it's David Krayden here. Thank you so much for subscribing and supporting the station. We could not move forward without you. What we're trying to do every week here is bring you the news you might not see everywhere else. And we're coming against Justin Trudeau's internet censorship laws. Please subscribe, ring that bell if you haven't done so already. I know it's annoying to ask. Believe me, I'm not a salesman. I'm a writer. but I really implore you to do that because I need this station to keep going. We want to keep bringing you the news that you want to hear. And if you want a story covered, let me know, please. Because that's where I'm getting a lot of news information from your tips. So thank you for being there for me. And you can also support this station by going on my Substack and subscribing for $8 a month. Yes, I know it's free, but I can also use your support. So please do that if you can. And I'll continue to be here every week, every day if must needs be, to tell you what's really happening in this world of ours. And I'm in nobody's pocket, but I am on your side.